Hi, everybody. Uh, I'm Dr. Charles Mullins. I'm streaming audio from Kentucky. I'm your new theater professor. Actually excited to be a part of Southern West Virginia Community and Technical College. I started my college career as a student at community college. I graduated from a community college before moving on to a university to finish my degrees. And um, I worked at Alice Lloyd College. You may have heard of that in Southeast Kentucky. I was there for 6 years. I was a professor in communication studies and theater arts. I taught a few classes in film as well. Um, I taught public speaking, interpersonal communication, all the theater classes. So um, I left Alice Lloyd College in June of 2002, 2022, and moved to Central Kentucky. And so now I'm working in Central Kentucky, and then I've joined the faculty at Southern West Virginia. So and prior to working at Alice Lloyd, I worked at Eastern Kentucky University in Central Kentucky, and um, I taught at South Georgia State College as well. So that gives you a bit of my background. Um, I will do another video where I cover the syllabus, but for now I wanted to go ahead and jump into chapter one. And it's likely I will do video recordings for subsequent lectures, but for now I'm doing the audio, but I'll likely switch to video. So if you have any questions, if I can clarify any information at any time, please email me. If I respond to email very quickly, and if we need to set up a Zoom to do a video call, we can do that. But I would like to try and primarily communicate via email. But if just know that, but if we do need to set up a video call or an audio call, we can do that. Um, the textbook is very important in this class, and we are using, as stated in the syllabus, the theater experience. And I'm using the 15th edition, The Theater Experience by Edwin Wilson. And the reason I say the textbook is important is because I believe when teaching an introductory course, like such as theater appreciation, and it doesn't matter if it's an introduction to biology, an introduction to sociology, introduction to business, etc. I think one of the primary things that the instructor is doing is introducing the student to the terminology. So we learn how to speak biology, we learn how to speak sociology or psychology, or maybe we are planning to be an education major or a history major. You get the idea. We're learning to speak the lingo, in this case, of being a theater artist, a theater professional. So um, I I'm big on learning the terminology. So in the textbook, everything that's in bold, everything that's in italics, that's important, and I cover those terms. I go over the terms explicitly in these lectures. Okay, so each chapter I cover, uh, and I will cover all of that terminology. Um, so beginning with chapter one, it's the audience, its role, and imagination. This is on page 5 in the textbook. I teach this class from, you could say I teach it from the perspective of the audience. We do look at things from the perspective of being on stage. That yes, I mean, we look at acting, We look at directing, we look at design, and that includes scene design, costume design, set, lighting design, sound design. We look at all those things. We look at stagecraft. We look at theatrical makeup. Um, all of the components of technical theater. Um, but what's the one thing that you all have in common in this class? I understand that most students that take theater appreciation, most students, whether it's at Southern West Virginia, whether it's at a big university, doesn't matter. Most students take theater appreciation because it's a general education option. In some cases, it could be a requirement, but it fulfills a general education requirement. And most students taking this class, most students, I dare say, don't have theater experience. There are all, believe me, I've taught this class for a long time. I've been teaching this class or a form of it since 2007. Sometimes, sometimes theater appreciation is called Introduction to Theater or whatever. Um, most of the students that take this class are interested in the class. They're intrigued. Um, Many of them did participate in theater in high school. Perhaps that the students were part of speech and drama. Um, some students uh, are into theater. Some students work in the theater. I will have students that want to be a theater major or a performing arts major, and so they may finish their general education requirements and perhaps transfer to another school, another college, or a university and get a degree in theater. There are many career options in theater. But my point is, I understand that most students are not theater artists that take this class. So I asked before, what's the one thing that you all have in common? Well, perhaps you're all not actors. Perhaps you are all not scene designers or costume designers, right? But the the big thing you have in common, you are all members of an audience. All of us, including myself. We all sit in an audience. We have gone to movies since we were little kids, right? And if if you've never been to the theater, if you've never been to a community theater or a professional theater, um, never been to Broadway, that's fine. Absolutely fine. I will I, I will reference, of course, plays, musicals. We look at those in this class, of course we do. But I do cite film. I talk about film as well, and I do that because we all watch movies. And what's interesting is that many of the movies we watch, many of the TV shows or films that we watch were actually a play or they were a stage play or a musical before they became a movie. And sometimes we watch the film and we don't even realize that it came from the stage. And we'll talk about that later in the semester. But so looking at the audience and its role and imagination, keep that in mind that you come into this class and perhaps you don't know a lot about theater, but you're going to learn a lot about theater. Trust me. So if you don't know a lot about theater, that's fine. You're going to learn a lot, but you've always been an audience member. So what I'm going to ask you to do as an audience member is look at the stage or look at the big screen. If you're watching a movie, either in a movie theater or at home, look at it differently. This class will change you. I have had students over the years say to me, I love your class. I learned so much about theater, but it's really changed the way that I uh, watch movies. The students say to me, I pick them apart. They notice things that they never really noticed before. And that's because if it weren't for the theater, we wouldn't have movies. So let's begin to uh, appreciate theater. Um, in chapter one, they talk about the mediated arts. Mediated arts are radio, film, television, digital streaming, performances captured or recorded through the use of other types of media. So, the mediated arts, beginning in the early years of the 20th century, mechanical and electronic inventions, they came fast and they came furious. Um, every step of the way, it was argued that live theater could not possibly withstand the onslaught of rivals that were so easily accessible. Think about the days of uh, the VHS tape. Those days are gone. And then the DVD, Laserdisc, DVD, Blu-ray, and now the streaming wars have begun, as I often say. So all of these things, the advent of technology, let's say, has not destroyed theater. It hasn't. It's impacted the theater, but it hasn't destroyed it. Theater is still here. Even COVID-19 didn't kill theater. Now, it was unfortunate that many theaters closed their doors during COVID. Things got rough. We all know that. That extends beyond performing arts into business, throughout all over the world. But theater is still here. It's still thriving. Um, theater is a group experience. This is discussed on page 10 in chapter 1. You see, certain arts, be it painting, sculpture, literature, those arts provide solitary experiences. Think about it. The viewer or the reader, they contemplate. They can work alone, right? I can go into an art studio with a blank canvas by myself. I can contemplate. I can think about it. I can paint and create a beautiful painting, and I can do that alone, right? I can sit at my computer and I can write a short story or a novel by myself alone with my thoughts. A sculptor, think about the sculptor, same thing. Theater, you see, is the most collaborative form of art that there is. You can't do it alone. Theater is a group experience. In order to have live theater, I need the audience. If I'm on stage by myself, no one else in the theater, just me, and I do a monologue or a soliloquy, well, that's really a rehearsal by definition. It's not live theater. In order to have that magic, the audience has to be there. The performer or performers on stage and the live audience. You see, the performing arts share this trait with other communal events. Communal events that you likely have participated with. Think about religious services, spectator sports, or just celebrations in general. Think about those types of events. Think about how those types of events have theatrical elements, right? It's a different setting, it's a different environment. You're not on stage, right? But there are theatrical elements. There is an audience. Think about, for example, at a Catholic parish. and we have a baby that's being baptized. Think about how the pastor or the priest who's present is going to be dressed in robes, right? Beautiful robes. The other members of the parish are going to be dressed in a similar way. And think about how those participating or attending the event are going to be dressed. They likely are going to be wearing, as we say, our Sunday's best. They're going to be dressed up. They're going to be looking nice and professional. Um, so think about that as a performance. I mean, the pastor is wearing a robe, or philosophically, is it not a costume, right? Reading from the biblical text is well, it's very akin to reading from the playbook, right? What I'm saying is there is a script. There is a script involved in this event. There are other theatrical elements aside from just having an audience and having costumes. There could be, and often there is lighting, special lighting within the facility. There is music, sound in the facility. So we can look for theatrical elements that surround us in everyday events. I mentioned spectator sports a moment ago. That's another one. Think about how um, when we have a big football game and the arena, well, it could be football, basketball, it could be many sports, but think about the arena, and the arena itself comes from theater, the arena stage, where the audience is surrounding the event on all sides. You know, we have the players on the field, which would be the performers. We have a coach who's playing the role of director, and there are playbooks nonetheless. Again, we have that lighting, the sound. We have various elements of oh, don't forget the costumes, right? And athletes are thinking, well, that's not a costume, it's a uniform. Well, yes, it's a uniform. Call it what you will. But again, think about this. Is it not a costume? You see, we play roles every day, in our personal lives, in our professional lives. Think about what roles you play on a personal level. Okay? Just think about it. I'm going to go first. I am a professor. I am also a compliance and training director. So those are professional roles, right? And I think about how in most professions we have to dress a certain way for that profession. And if one didn't wear a suit and they were an attorney, they're not going to walk into the courtroom wearing jeans and an AC/DC t-shirt, right? No, they're they're going to be dressed up. They're going to be wearing that Sunday's best in the courtroom. And you go see your doctor, and perhaps your medical doctor always comes in with that white coat, right? There are expectations we have in society that when we play these personal or professional roles, that we are going to look a certain way. And that again gets us to thinking about the idea of a costume, right? Whether you call it a uniform or whatever, it's something that's needed or required or expected for that profession. Personal roles could be, well, I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm a son, I'm a son-in-law, right? Just think about these different roles that we play in society. Think about how we act, not only wear certain things for different events. Think about how you might be required to wear something at work, right? Whatever that is. Is it a uniform? Is it an apron? Um, there are different elements of costume at play here. So what I'd like you, I mentioned before, but what I would like you to do, reading over chapter one, is keep that in mind. What roles do I play in society, professionally and personally? Um, see if I can get where I left off. Page 14, aesthetic distance on page 14. Physical or psychological separation or detachment of audience from dramatic action. This is aesthetic distance. It's a separation. It's as necessary in theater as it is in any other art. In the same way that we must stand back from a painting to get its full effect, so too in theater, we as the audience, we must be separated from the performance in order to see and hear what is happening on stage. We want to absorb the experience. Um, immersive theater. Immersive theater is mentioned on page 15. Audience members play an active role in some way. We call this immersive theater. Um, sometimes even sometimes performers might choose where they should go within that space and what they should see and do, right? Many such productions use transformed, redesigned spaces, as well as requiring audience members to engage in the performance. So, what I'm talking about with immersive theater is when the actors on stage or the performers on stage truly involve the audience in the action. So they get them. They may take 4 or 5 audience members up from the front and bring them on stage. You are now not only an audience member, but you are now part of the dramatic action occurring on stage. Immersive theater, and you read about that on page 15. There are other terms in chapter one that aren't going to be strange for you or not going to be unknown to you, such as the flashback mentioned on page 17. In a narrative or a story, movement back to a time in the past to show a scene or to show an event before the narrative resumes. That is a flashback. And we've all seen these in TV shows and movies over the years. Symbolism is discussed on page 18. So take a look at that. A symbol is a sign. It's a token. It's an emblem that signifies something else. A sign, a visual image, an object, action that signifies something else, a visual embodiment of something invisible. We discuss and look at symbolism frequently in the theater. The power of symbols. Think about symbols and metaphors, right? Let's not forget metaphors. Symbols and metaphors, not real in a literal sense, but they have enormous power to influence our lives. They become realer than real, you could say. A forceful symbol of the bravery, of the tragedy, losses of the Vietnam War, for example. That would be the wall, the Vietnam War wall. And that there's a photo of that on page 19. There we have symbolism. There we have the use of metaphor, and a playwright and or a director could take that symbol, and if it's a playwright, it's going to write a play. But they could take that wall and use that as a symbol and a metaphor and write a play based around that idea, right? Um, page 21, we look at realism. We look at realism and we look at non-realism in theater. Broadly, an attempt to present on stage people, places, events corresponding to those in everyday life. That's realism, right? Non-realism, that's all types of theater that depart from observable reality. If I watch Netflix a lot, right? So I finished the TV series Wednesday recently, and that would be an example of non-realism, right? Or Stranger Things, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, non-realism. But realism, all of those things, the people, the places, the events that truly resemble real life as we know it. So we watch a play like Bus Stop or Death of a Salesman. These are classic plays. That's realism. There are no supernatural elements. There's no magic. There are no dragons. In Death of a Salesman or Bus Stop, right? So that's, I think you get the idea. But it's very important to understand the difference: realism and departures from realism, which we call non-realism. Soliloquy, I think I mentioned soliloquy earlier, but I did not define it. A soliloquy is a speech that a character on stage is delivering um, alone, and they they speak their inner thoughts out loud. That's a soliloquy, a speech in which a character who is alone on stage speaks their inner thoughts out loud. Probably the most famous soliloquy in the theater would be Hamlet's "To Be or Not to Be" soliloquy, which I bet you're familiar with that. Pantomime, another term on page 22 that you should take note of. A form of theatrical presentation that relies on dance, gesture, physical movement, but no speech, no vocal work. Pantomime is dance, it's gesture, it's physical movement. Um, just some closing thoughts. Um, chapter 1 is a short chapter. It's an introduction, to the audience, and it's, as I said, its role and imagination. But during the past 100 years, theater has been challenged by a succession of technological developments. Um, I mentioned this earlier, but now I'm going into a bit more detail. We had silent movies, we had radio, um, then then movies began to talk. We had the advent of television, and now now we have electronic handheld cellular devices. We can watch a movie on our cell phone, for crying out loud, right? Um, the streaming wars I mentioned earlier. The streaming wars have begun. Theater has survived these challenges, and partly because of the special nature of that performer audience relationship. It's unique. You can go home and you can watch a movie. Pick any movie. Pick any movie. Pick a favorite movie. You go home and you can watch that movie over and over again, and it's not going to change. You can watch it today. You can watch it next week. That film is not going to change. Nothing about that film is going to ever change. But with live theater, you could go tonight to see a play, and uh, you go next week to see the same play, and you're going to notice things are different. Why? Because each night the actor might deliver a line in a different way, or actors. performers, I should say. It's remember, it's not all acting. When I say performers, that includes dancers, right? If you're watching a musical, it could be that um, a particular performer on stage changes something. Maybe the director had them alter something. So I see the play or the musical tonight, then I go see it again next week, and I notice things. I'm like, huh, that's different, right? Theater is it's live, so it's never the same. You never deliver the same performance twice. Each performance is going to be different in some way. That's why, and as an actor, believe me, I can attest to this. That's why actors will walk off stage on, let's say opening night is Thursday night. They have a great opening night, and I walk off stage. I go back to the dressing room, and I'm like, wow, it's great. The audience was fantastic, and I felt I nailed all of my scenes. It was awesome, and I feel really good about myself. I feel good about the play. Um, and then the following night, uh, something happens. The audience is just not as energetic as the audience from Thursday night. The Friday night audience maybe is just they're quiet. They're quieter, I should say. They're different. Every audience is different, and what that does is it could affect it could affect the performances. So the actors on stage, they're not getting the same laughter that they got the night before, and it can affect your performance. So you walk off the stage the second night and you're thinking, man, what happened? I don't think I did as good. I didn't get a laugh on that one line that I got a laugh on last night, right? I mean, doesn't the audience think I'm funny? You This will happen to actors, and what we have to remember is that each audience is different. So every night, every performance is going to be different. And we go out there and we do it each night like we're doing it for the first time. We feed off the audience. We do. We feed off of that interaction, hearing the audience laugh or hearing the audience sigh, hearing the audience grumble, or um, if you maybe even make the audience cry. I think that rhymed. Okay, I didn't mean to be Dr. Dr. Seuss there, but um, so my point being, there is this special nature of the performer and audience relationship. That's very important to remember. Um, I mentioned in 2020 and 21, live theater was challenged by the worldwide shutdowns caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The desire for live performance resulted in streamed and Zoom hosted performances. There was a desire, for live theater to return, and it did. Theater, like many other performances, is a group experience, right? The composition of the audience has a direct bearing on the effect of the experience. Um, so uh, the remember the what's in bold, what's in italics, very important. There are other things that I pulled from the textbook that aren't in bold and in italics. There are. Do those things end up on the tests? Yes, they do. We have a midterm test and we have a final exam in this class. So also, I expect students to be able to use this terminology. I want you to use what you're learning. So when you write a paper for me, or we're discussing things in the discussion board online in Brightspace, I want students to use the theatrical terminology. This is going to be a fun class. I think it should be. Um, I think that an introductory course should be challenging for the students. I think the students should certainly challenge themselves. I think we should work on becoming better critical thinkers. But I also feel that if a class has the word theater in the title, it should be fun. So I hope you enjoy the class. This is the end of the Chapter 1 lecture. If you have any questions, please contact me, and I will see you for chapter 2. Thank you.